Hello and welcome to FPL Have a Beer, where I invite you to have a beer with me while I discuss FPL. Please like if you enjoy the video and subscribe if to support the channel. We're getting very, very close to 400 subscribers at the time of recording, and it would absolutely mean the world to me for this if I could get the channel up to 400 subscribers before it turns 5 months old in a couple of weeks. So please hit the subscribe button. It would really mean the world to me. Thank you. So welcome to another interview in the Meet the FPL Manager / Meet the Content Creator interview series, where I asked one of our lovely FPL content creators onto the channel to talk about their experiences of content creation, their thoughts on FPL and mental health, and we generally have a chat about how the season's going and FPL in general towards the end of the video. So for the 18th interview in this series, we have someone who's basically been making content since the first time I started watching, the lovely Az of FPL BlackBox and Fantasy Football Scout. Az, I'm delighted to have you on the channel, mate. As you may know, FPL BlackBox is my favourite ever podcast. You know, I'm not just saying that. I've literally got a tier list video where I put it there to prove it. And also, I know you're a fellow doctor in psychology, which I'm guessing some people watching may not know. So, also excited to have a fellow doctor on here with me. Actually, this will be almost the third one because the last one was Raptor Ross. He's on his way to.
He's not there yet. He doesn't count. He's qualifying.
And I've added one thing into the script at the last minute. I've literally just finished watching Yelena's last video.
Yelena's what?
Yelena's last video, where you spend half of it lying around naked in a robe, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get that image out of my mind through the interview. So I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable or anything, but there may be some nudie stuff going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of leg, isn't there? There's a lot of leg in that video.
A lot of feet.
A lot of it's mine, so yeah. Sorry anyone who was maybe hoping for it to be reversed, but yeah. It's mostly mine.
The thing that freaked me out the most, or turned me on, depending on how you think about it, is when you did
that. Can't it be both, Gary? It could be both, you know.
Well, you did the little wink,
shame it.
The little wink and seductive. I highly suggest if anyone has not seen that, you don't go and check it out.
Yeah,
I mean, go out and check Yelena's video, but maybe don't watch the visuals or.
Just listen to it. She should do a podcast version. That would help.
It's brilliant to have you on, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Thanks for the kind words about BlackBox. Obviously, the tier list video is the only reason I'm here, which is nice. Saw that video a while ago and thought, yeah, he's all right. It's this guy. No, it's good to be. I've been really enjoying all the series so far. I think, like I said last night, I did a watch along for the Liverpool Everton game, and I was talking about your interview with Andrew and his experience with mental health. Like that interview will stay with me for a long time. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, it's got around the community a bit, hasn't it? Some of the stuff he was saying about mental health in general, but mental health in FPL in particular, which was great to see. I think he was so nervous coming on because it's the first time he's sort of spoken outside of his FPL nightmare persona. You know, he took a lot of like encouraging, but now I think he's getting the fact that people really, really love him. So
he speaks so well, doesn't he? He speaks so clearly and concisely, and did his prep, and it was really, really good. I mean, to be fair, all the people you've had on have been really good. They've all been really interesting, and you get different insights from different areas. So yeah, I'm happy to be a part of it.
Up until this one, anyway.
Yeah, you know, that's why you've got me about midway, right? You've got the people in, and then it's only downhill from here.
So I know you've watched a few of the interviews. So I usually start off with a couple of opening questions. So the one I usually start with is if you could tell us a bit about yourself. Don't say where do you live. Where did you grow up? Who do you support?
My house number.
Yeah. What are your first memories of football? Things like that.
Like being on a blind date or something. My name's Az. I'm 35. I grew up in Essex, in Brentwood, in Essex. My parents have lived there for many years, about 40 years now. I think my dad's from Brighton originally, hence the Brighton connection.
Is that the away kit?
This is a retro kit from sort of the early 2000s.
Oh, okay. I thought
which I won in a bet from FPL family Sam last year.
It looks. I thought it was like AC Milan or something. It looks a bit.
No, it's the Seagulls.
Oh,
Seagulls.
nice, nice.
They copied us. I'm sure this kit came way before their iconic red and black strip. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a funny one when it comes to football, because I can't honestly say, I hear people saying they were football crazy growing up and all they wanted to do was kick a ball around and stuff. That wasn't me at all. I was like the one kid who everyone else went out to play football at school, and I'd be in the IT, in the computer department playing like slime soccer and stuff. Proper nerds, really. I was a Man U fan until I was till well into my uni days as well, because
you did the big switcheroo. You're not. That's like a taboo in the football world, isn't it?
I know. I only really truly got into football at uni. Before that, I'd been to quite a few games with my dad. I saw Brighton get promoted. I was always a Brighton fan, but Man U were just the team that I just said I supported.
They were like your second team.
Yeah, and Brighton were in like League Two and stuff at the time, and League One. You couldn't even watch them. So the only games I'd go to with my dad, and I'd watch Man U whenever they were on. I had a few friends who were Man U fans, so I'd watch the big games, but not religiously follow it or anything. The game that got me into thinking, oh my God, football is actually really cool, was the Liverpool AC Milan Champions League final.
Oh, 2006, wasn't it?
Yeah, I watched that game and I was like, hang on about, there's some, I can see, I never really got it, and now I see why people love this game, because that game just had everything. And after that, I started to get more into it. I went to uni. I was like, right, I've got to, if I'm going to make friends and everyone's into football, which they clearly are, like our country's absolutely mad for football, I've got to start, playing it and stuff. And my entry point into it was FPL.
It's interesting, because your dad's really into it, isn't he?
My dad is mad for it, and I think that is what put me off.
Right.
When I was a kid, because he had Brighton. He used to play for Brighton. I don't even know his story. He used to play for Brighton back when they weren't very good, and he was a kid. And he always claims about he score 100 goals a season and all that. And I'm sure he was a good player. There's some truth to it. I'm sure he exaggerates a little bit as we all do.
Have you wikied him or something? Has he got a wiki page? Absolutely
not. No, he wasn't. We never went. We're talking about when he was like 14, 15. Okay. He's when he was young.
And youth teams.
Yeah, like the youth team stuff. Like he always says, "Oh, I could have made it professionally, but I chose to go down other avenues and stuff." And I'm sure he could have done. I won't say anything bad about it, but yeah, he pushed me a lot as a kid. I think I was the only child, only son. He really wanted me to play football, and he's also a little bit too competitive. So he would take me to the park and just dribble around me and score 15 goals, and I'm 8. And be like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And then he made the big mistake of buying me a Sega Mega Drive. And as soon as he did that, I got hooked on gaming, and kind of sports and stuff went out the window. He tried to get me playing a bit of everything, bit of tennis, bit of squash, bit of football, nothing really stuck.
Is he like that dad from, I don't know if you might be too young to remember, there was a Fast Show, there was a character where the dad would just beat his kids at everything. He was like the dad, he was completely...
That is my dad, yeah. that is my dad. I mean, everything, he's chess. I was quite a keen chess player when I was in my... my teens. He was obviously better than me at that. He was better than me at tennis, better than me at squash. The only thing I've ever successfully beaten him at is golf, and I'm not good at golf. So that shows how bad he is at that. That's the one sporting achievement I've had over him. But
I remember. Yeah, I clearly remember the first time I beat my dad. We were in Spain I think I was about 15.
At golf?
No, it was at tennis, and I absolutely thrashed him. But I didn't get any pleasure out of it. I was actually really disappointed. You think you'd get, but I'm like, oh my God, I've surpassed my dad.
I beat my dad at tennis once, and that was when he was in his 60s, in his mid to late 60s, and he won, and I won, and he just kind of went, "Oh, well done, son," and I was like, yeah, I needed to do this 20 years ago, didn't I? This doesn't feel great. I'm 25 at my absolute peak of fitness, and you're... Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
I think when I beat my dad, he was still in his 40s, so...
Yeah, I didn't have that. Didn't have that dream. I've beaten him a few times at chess and things. The golfing one was my greatest success against him, because we did an 18-hole golf course, and I actually beat him, fair and square, so I'll take that one.
Nice one. So before we get into the FPL stuff, I'd be interested to know, even if the viewers aren't, about your degree, your PhD in psychology. I mean, I know I've heard you mention it occasionally in FPL videos before. I mean, it may be completely not interesting, which is why you haven't mentioned it more. But I just wondered what it was in and why. I mean, returning viewers may know that I am a psychology lecturer who did a PhD and then went on to become a psychology lecturer. I was wondering why you're not interested in pursuing a career in academia or anything like that?
I was. I was. I mean, it's not really something I really talk about because it's not really. I don't really connect it really to FPL. Like I know Raptor does all this FPL psychology stuff in the books, and there's really good articles. Simon March on Fantasy Football Scout's written some really good, articles about gambler's fallacy and all that kind of stuff. But that wasn't what I did, and it's like that's a typical question of when they say to you, "Oh, does that mean you could read my mind?" It's like, yeah, bloody wish I could. Instead, I went into some really niche field that I'm probably never gonna do anything with again. My thesis was on violent media and aggression.
Right.
So I was looking at basically I've been gaming my whole life, and I certainly wouldn't describe myself as a violent person. And I wanted to show that a lot of research out there that linked the two together had big flaws, and it was poorly conducted, and actually you could elicit similar effects with non-violent stuff in the same way as violent stuff. So that's what I set out to do. I semi-achieved it in the sense that I passed. I'm not some groundbreaking psychologist.
PhD is only pass or fail, so.
Well, it is, yeah. Well, I got through it.
Yeah.
I got through it. It was a tough old slog. My intention, what I really enjoyed doing was teaching. I loved lecturing. I did a lot of lecturing during the PhD.
Exactly what Raptor said when I was on it last week.
It's always my favorite part. I mean, I enjoyed the research side of things. I felt like psychology was really poorly done in a lot of areas in terms of what they class as research. And the more I learned about universities, the more I learned about how they get grants and the pressure on, lecturers to bring in money, and that's often at the cost of good research and good research practice and ethics. And then you see class sizes increasing to 350, 400, 450, while the funding of universities drops. It just became quite a depressing end to my time there. Yeah. And in the end, I just thought, I don't know, in some ways I wanted to be a part of it so I could, try and help out and do things the right way. But another part of me just thought, I just sell my soul and go somewhere else, which is always a shame because I always intended to go into teaching at university, but kind of fell at the final hurdle really.
So it's just coming to my mind as you were saying that, because I remember when Raptor had his first paper out, or his research group on FPL and mental health, and I remember you completely tearing the paper apart on a BlackBox episode from a statistical point of view, like saying all the means were really low with everyone, etc.
Did I? I have absolutely no memory of that.
You did, but that the papers that are out there are mine, so now are mine and Roz's. So please be a bit nicer if you decide to.
That's why you've got me in here, on it, to call me out. I have no memory of that. I remember taking part in that research, but I don't remember talking about it negatively.
I mean, to be fair, because I sort of did the media for the paper we had out last year, and the media overblow the results so much. It's.
Do you know what? I think that was it. I don't think it was particularly the paper. I think I had a problem with some of the extrapolations that the media were taking from the paper.
Terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah, no, I do favour. I don't think I tapped like the actual research. I don't think I would have done that.
No.
I think it was.
Well, I think you were just saying like the means. Even of the people who are saying they have high mental health issues do not really have high mental health issues. It's just comparative. So you made valid points. Anyway,
thank you. I don't think I would have intended to go out and attack paper, but if I did, I can only apologise.
So when did you first get into fantasy football?
So I got into fantasy football properly. I was working at Curry's Digital in Brentwood. I had just finished sixth form, and I was on a gap year waiting to go to uni. And a guy who is still a member of the FPL community, well, he's a member of the FPL community now, who recently got in touch with me. Turns out he's been watching BlackBox for ages and couldn't believe that, because I haven't seen him since we were 17, and then suddenly I'm appearing on the FPL show and doing streams and things like that. And he's the main reason I got into it, because shout out to Craig Blackwood, because I was at Curry's and he said, "Have you played this game, fantasy football?" And I was like, "No," but I was looking to get into football anyway. And we had a real big rivalry.
What sort of year is this as?
This is 2007.
Okay, going back nearly 20 years. Then.
Yeah, I think I'd played it in the year before that as well. I think my season starts at 2006, 2007. So I think I'd heard of it and I'd played it, and I think that was when Ronaldo was really good, but everyone hated him because I think he'd just done the wink to Rooney or something like that. And so I just remember putting him in my team, and he was just scoring every week, and no one else had him. But I didn't really take it too seriously. And then when I played against Craig at Curry's, I was just, when I get into something, I just get absolutely obsessed with it. And that's how I got into like finding Fantasy Football Scout, because he was beating me, and I was like, right, I need to do something. So I remember typing in fantasy football tips online, and then I was introduced to the world of Fantasy Football Scout, and that was it.
I think it's still the first thing that comes up apart from actual FPL.
I mean, it's incredible. It's an incredible resource, and it amazes me that, you know, you've got forums like Reddit and you've got Twitter and stuff, and there's just this little community board which hasn't changed since like 2006, and there's still this really strong community.
Because that predated Twitter, because Twitter was what, 2010,
yeah,
2011?
Before Twitter. I mean, it was before everything, and you know, there are still people posting on it now who I remember seeing back in 2007. And I admit I don't post on it as much as I used to, because I haven't moved over to some of the other platforms. But you know, it's great, and a lot of the tools. I mean, a lot of the tools Mark built are still pretty much as they were. Like the Rate My Team tool was so advanced, and okay, there's different Rate My Team options that people do now, but Scout's one still holds up. You know, after 20 years, it's pretty incredible.
Any early memories stand out, fantasy football wise?
Yeah, well, I remember my first like real taste of like pain with FPL, which I think has really set the story for most of my FPL life, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. I remember selling Roque Santa Cruz. I think it was like the week before Christmas.
Blackburn and Man City player.
He was at Blackburn. It was when he was really good, and I remember selling it. I can't remember why I sold him, but I sold him, and then he scored 4 goals.
Wow.
Or maybe it was a hat trick. It's either 3 or 4 goals. And I remember the Sun headline the next day was like "Santa comes early" or something like that. And I just remember that headline really sticks in my mind, because I'm like, yeah, that really hurts. Like that is my first real mess. I've really messed that up selling him before this game. And that was when I remember that, because that's when I first realized what FPL could like do to you, like your mind, you know, because I kind of just played it and done all right, and then I'd done that, and then that was my first like, yeah, I've really messed it up.
I have a hobby every season. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the channel before. I name my team I hate and then a player.
Right.
So 1 year it was 1 year, and the player is always the one who hurt me the most, and it was all it was I hate Harry Kane, I hate Callum Wilson, but I finished 3,000 last year, so I didn't really have anyone. So I just repeated I hate Callum Wilson basically, despite being a Newcastle fan. But I've already decided after this weekend. By the way, we're recording this. Liverpool have just played Everton last night in double game week 24. Yeah, and I hate Chris Wood is 100% going to be my.
God, well, I can definitely relate to that. He's basically single-handedly ruined me this year.
And made
the hat trick against my own team.
And made Yelena's life.
I know, that's the worst bit, really.
So you're playing FPL. I'm assuming you're enjoying it.
Sometimes. And
so when did going from an FPL player turn into becoming a content creator? Like what inspired
Yeah, I got so involved in Fantasy Football Scout. Like a lot of people just use the site and use the tools and you know, maybe read some comments, but I kind of went down the classic route. I started getting more involved in the community side of things. So I was posting quite a bit. I knew some people there. I started to make, you know, online friends with people on there. And then I went into when I was at uni, I was like known as the person who was, you know, setting up all the leagues and getting people playing who never played it before and stuff. And you know, everyone knew that I was using this site for like tips. So I became like the kind of uber nerd of fantasy football. But like I said, this tied into this obsession with FPL really tied into my obsession with football. And I talked about being a Man U fan. I think as the years went on and I started getting more into football, I realized that my connection was much more like on my dad's side, like going to matches with my dad, watching games with my dad, you know, getting excited about Brighton and things.
I mean, to be fair, you did switch teams, but people can hardly accuse you of being a glory hunter.
Well, I got called. I remember getting called a glory hunter when I kind of started being a bit more vocal about supporting Brighton. I remember people called me a glory hunter, and it was when Brighton were in the Championship. I think they just got promoted from League One, and United just like won the Champions League. It's like, I don't think this is quite
Doesn't
fair.
work, does it?
Yeah, I think it's what happens to a lot of people, right? A lot of people start supporting a team like Man U or someone, and then in their early teens they kind of find themselves and find their own way. And I think that's what happened to me, just at a slightly later time.
Football fans are weird. I posted the weekend about Leyton Orient, which are my local team. But I didn't realise they were playing Man City. I already got a ticket, and I got loads of well, not loads, but I had about 4 or 5 comments back saying, "But you support Newcastle," and
yeah, I know. I don't get that.
Why do you not support Leyton Orient, your local team? And I'm just like, I didn't want to
because I don't. I find it weird as well. Like when you go to a game, like you go to like Yelena and I try and go to loads of different games. We went to Brentford last year, which was amazing. Went to West Ham, and you post a picture, and then everyone's like, "I thought you were a Brighton fan. What are you doing at the West Ham game?" It's like, I can go to other games and still support my team. Or I remember, I think there's a video of Yelena and I cheering a West Ham goal. And everyone's like, "Oh, how can you cheer like a West Ham goal? That's disgusting." It's like, because we're in the stadium and we're enjoying it, and it was like part of the atmosphere. Like you can still, it's so tribal, isn't it? Like so much of the world has become so tribal and so many things. Football's always been like that, fair enough. But I don't know. I still feel like I'm very attached to Brighton, but I can still go and enjoy other games and football experiences generally. And that's why I like about FPL, because you can play FPL and not even support a team, which more and more people are starting to do.
I'm sure Yelena said when I interviewed her that Brentford had the best pies in the country. Or
yes, they did. The food there was. I will say the Brighton sausage roll is very, very impressive.
So I'll take you back. Content creation. So how did we get in?
Sorry, I went a bit of a tangent.
I led you.
Yeah, I was doing the, like I said, I was in the community. I was at uni. I was talking to people. Like everyone was kind of coming to me, like asking me for advice and things like that. And I remember I set up a couple of cash leagues, which were legal back in the day. And I was running those. So, you could just see I was starting to just get more and more involved in things. Now I had people giving me money and setting up leagues and paying out prizes and talking to people on forums and all this kind of stuff. And I always enjoyed, writing like things. And the more I started reading like articles, the more I started, and I was watching like a lot of football as well. So yeah, I just started doing some community articles on Scout, just where I talk about, a lot of it was like eye test stuff. I've watched these many games, this is what I've seen, this is who you should be buying. And then they started doing quite well. And then the kind of the big kind of break with it really was Scout did a great thing called the Scout Camp, where basically anyone that was contributing to the site could go along to this all-inclusive bar that Mark would pay for. And yeah, it was amazing. And he'd do a quiz and he'd chat to everyone about the direction of the site and what he wanted to do. And, it was just he really wanted to thank everyone for all the effort and time they were putting in, because a lot of the stuff that was happening at the time was he wasn't paying anyone. It was a small site. I think he just started getting some ad money and maybe the memberships had come in, but he wasn't making a lot of money. And like 90% of the work that was going on was from people just volunteering their time to moderate on the site and write articles and stuff. And that was his way of paying back, which is, classic Mark. He's a very generous guy. And there I met Joe, and Joe had gone to my uni. He'd gone to Kent uni, was it before me? And we got on really well. We were chatting, got on really well.
And a fellow Brighton fan.
Exactly. So we really hit it off. That was after I finished. That was probably, what was that? I can't even remember when I was about 22, 23, something like that. So I've been doing the articles and stuff on the site, and then I met Joe. And then literally a few weeks after that, I had an email from him, and it just said, bit of a long shot, but Granville can't make the ScoutCast this week. Do you fancy being on it? And I listened to it every week, and I think I must have been drunk at this event, and I must have said to him, "Oh, I love the ScoutCast. I'd love to be on at some point," proper beg like stuff. But yeah, Joe invited me on, and I went on. I was really nervous, really excited. So sometimes I watched that first episode. I did, because I'm there with my headphones and I'm all like nervous and stuff. Yeah, and then I did that one, and then Granville was embarking on his political career, and he was missing more and more episodes. So whenever he couldn't make it, they drafted me in, and then eventually I became a regular.
That's interesting. I don't know if you've watched the one I did with Andy, Let's Talk FPL Andy, yet, because he said exactly the same thing. So yeah. It sounds like Granville not being available launched quite a few FPL content creator careers.
Well, it is. I mean, Mark and Granville were, in my mind, and still are the best that have ever done it. because
Yeah.
the chemistry they had between them, and it's kind of like, I feel like Mark and Granville light, because Mark is so analytical and stressed and overthinks everything, and Granville is the complete kind of opposite of that. But they both still have obviously the emotion that comes with playing the game. And you could just listen to them for hours bickering about different things, and things that have gone wrong, and I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then I remember Joe coming on and Andy coming on and Luke going on as well. And even when they started adding more people, it never lost that feeling that it had. And that's what we try and do with BlackBox, because we want to keep that spirit.
I would say, I've got some things here. When you started on the ScoutCast, it was the golden age of ScoutCast. Don't get me wrong. I still love ScoutCast now. I've had Andy FPL Mold on here before, but yourself, Joe, Mark, Andy, Granville, it must have been amazing. I guess you didn't know at the time, but I think one of the reasons FPL BlackBox, it almost brings back a feeling of comfort from those older days. I don't know. It really. Yeah.
I think it was as much for me as everyone listening. It was a comfort thing. It just come on in the evening and you just put it on. And I think that's what Andy does so well with the Let's Talk videos is, and I said this to him, I don't mean it as an insult, but you're amazing background noise, And I think when you are amazing background noise, you've kind of made it, because people can just have you on, be doing their own thing, and you're just there providing that comfort to them. We were lucky though, because there was no one else doing it. There was no other competition at all. It was, if you were into fantasy football and you wanted to listen to four blokes talk about FPL, you had to listen to the ScoutCast. There was nothing else out there. And it would be very different now for someone to come out and try and do that, because the competition is ridiculous, and there's so many good content creators out there, and there's so many good ones that are struggling to get off the ground. So you've got to have a niche and everything like that. But yeah, we were blessed in the sense that Mark and Granville were the first to do it, and even when I came on, there wasn't anyone else really doing it.
I asked Fantasy Football Scout Joe when he was on this question, because obviously he was part of that. I don't know, five or six people that were coming on at the time. Did you realise how pioneering it was at the time you were a part of that?
I think I did, in the sense that I knew about the community and I knew how many people loved it and loved the game. And we weren't getting 100,000 views. We were getting 5,000-6,000 views at the time, but
which now would be considered lower, I guess, wouldn't it?
Well, exactly, yeah. When you compare it to what Raptor and Andy are doing, but at the time it was like, Jesus, 5,000 people are watching this. It was an incredibly niche community, and that's what I love most about it. It was so. My friends had, if I was telling my friends I was doing videos about fantasy football and writing on forums and making friends for it, they'd just be like, what the hell are you talking about? That's just completely insane. Whereas now it's a lot more normalized, now I think, like I said, with Reddit and with other things, those kind of communities are much more apparent in general life, but they weren't really back then, because it was the first to do it. So I don't think I never expected FPL to blow up in the way that it has done. I think that's been the biggest thing. I still look at 10 million people playing. I look at things like the FPL show. I look at all the content creation, people quitting their jobs to do full-time content creation and stuff. I never in a million years thought it would ever reach. I remember when Andy announced he was doing it full-time, I was absolutely
Was he the first one?
Yeah. Because he left the ScoutCast to do his channel full time, and I remember us all thinking, "Oh, that's risky. Are you going to earn enough money from doing that?" And God knows how much he earns.
He told me about that. He said he was comparing his what he was earning at EA. We worked at, wasn't it, for a while, and then realised he was basically earning as much, if not more, from streaming than he was from that.
Yeah.
But okay, so obviously, you've got a great relationship with the ScoutCast. This FF Scout. You still do stuff with them now. But I wanted to move on to talking about BlackBox. I've got Mark Sutherns' name highlighted here, and I've got Mark Sutherns. If you watch this, you said you'll come on for an interview. I've added you on Twitter and Blue Sky. You need.
Good luck.
You need to add me back. But so what I was actually going to ask you is, obviously he left FF Scout. I think he sold it.
Yeah.
we won't go into exactly why, but I know there were health reasons involved.
Mm.
And then he was out for at least a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean he's pretty open about that. He was running the site full time. He was working for the Premier League. He was doing lots of stuff for them, doing the show and going in every weekend. To work out of that. He was in a kind of like a minor car accident, which it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it gave him quite bad whiplash, I think it was, which then led to feelings of like vertigo. So he was constantly kind of disorientated, trying to run the site, trying to do this job with the Premier League. And in the end, it just all became too much for him. So he made the very sensible decision of, stepping back on all these kind of stresses and stuff, and going back to a more 9-to-5 job, which ironically has now led to him even more stressed because that job hasn't exactly, isn't always as stress-free as. I mean, Mark would make anything stressful, to be fair, but I think he would probably argue at the time it was the right decision to make. But yeah, he completely stepped back from everything. He sold Scout to someone who he worked with, whether they were like a partner he had there. He stepped back from obviously doing the official Premier League stuff, which was a big deal for him because that was like the dream. That's the goal, right? You're doing FPL content, and then suddenly you work with the Premier League to not do that anymore. And he stopped doing content, which he loved doing content and things, and he got things back on track in terms of his own health. And then a few years later, he wanted to come back to doing content, but didn't really know what to do. And I think he probably would have done some solo like videos on his own. But I just started doing BlackBox on my own.
Okay, so that's what I was. That was going to be my question. So BlackBox didn't start off with Mark Sutherns is going to be my.
No,
co-host.
It didn't. No, I had just read BlackBox Thinking, the book, and I was still doing stuff for the ScoutCast, but I think I was inspired by Andy, and I was thinking, right, I need to get my own channel and I need to start doing my own stuff because he's blown up, and I want a piece of that sweet YouTube money. So I was trying to think of an angle, and I thought, well, we make a lot of mistakes in FPL, so BlackBox Thinking is all about how we learn from mistakes and things.
What's the book about?
It's a great. You should definitely read it. It's a book about like why we shouldn't be afraid or embarrassed to admit to mistakes, essentially, and how learning from mistakes helps us grow as a culture and a community. And you look at different. He uses the black box. The black box is from like aeroplanes. So when there's like a crash or something in aviation, they will check the black box recordings to see what went wrong. And I think like the reason why airlines are so safe and why there are so few accidents is because they regularly, whenever something happens, they go full blown, like what happened? Why did it happen? How do we fix it? Whereas that doesn't always happen. If you think about like at work, or if you think about, he uses like doctors as an example where there's not arrogance, but there's less of a culture of admitting to mistakes and things. And so certain systems don't get changed and things don't get better. I took that idea and tried to apply it to FPL in the sense that
I didn't know that. When I think about it now, it's a very morbid name for an FPL.
It is, yes. Well, I think a lot of us can relate to a crash of some regard. So it kind of works on two levels, but. Yeah, I mean, I started doing videos on that, and I look back at them now, and they were awful. I had a really crappy microphone and headset, and it was just me rambling on.
Like mine.
Well, it was worse. It was way worse than yours. Really, I was using a headset mic, and it was like the one I use for my Skype calls at work and stuff like that. And a friend of mine did a little animation graphic, which it was nice at the time, but now we've got a fancy sting and all that stuff. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. And I got a couple of hundred people watching it like every week, and I was over the moon with that. I thought it was great to have this little audience of people I'd chat to. I was also doing a bit of stuff with Luke as well. We were doing what we called Top Guns, the Top Guns podcast, which I really enjoyed doing that around the same time. But I don't think
I ever saw that one.
No, he's got a very hectic life. So in the end, we kind of had to bin that off because it was a bit too hard to work out.
He does do a podcast, doesn't he? I can't remember.
Yeah, he does.
Goals, is it?
Inspected Goals. Yeah. I think he's starting to get a bit more time now, so I think he's probably getting up to doing a bit more content, which is great. I love listening to Luke. We've always gotten really. I think we met at the same scout camp actually.
I always loved having him on FF Scout because he was so. I know he's become more template, but he was so random.
He was so maverick. I know. He was so maverick. He'd be like, yeah, I'm captaining Seamus Coleman this week. Like, why not? And it would never work, but you'd be rooting for him every time he did it. So yeah, again with that, we were getting a few hundred views, and we were happy with that. And then I think when Mark messaged me and said, should we partner up? I remember thinking, well, okay, this could actually be, quite a good one, because Mark's big return, and I was thinking, I think we'll play quite well off with each other, because I'm more like Granville than the Mark. You can't have two Marks in doing a podcast, but you can't have two Azes doing a podcast. You need that balance of analytics and obsession, and then someone maybe a bit more.
I don't know if you follow wrestling at all. I don't nowadays.
I used to.
I've just got the. I don't know why, but I've got this image in my head of Mark Sutherns returning to FPL content creation as being like the re-emergence of the dead man Undertaker persona.
Yeah, you can say that. I mean, did he tag team anyone? Well, he was with Kane for a bit, wasn't he? I don't think I'd partner. I think it's more like when The Rock came back and he was partnered with Mankind for a bit, and he was like the Rock and Sock collection. It's pretty more like that.
So there was one other thing I was going to ask you before I go on to ask some of the other questions that I normally ask. So I'm right. I think I'm right in saying you became a full-time FPL content creator working for Scout, but then you went back to normal work, even though you still maintain your involvement in Scout. You've got a day job, haven't you? I've never heard of anyone doing that before, so I hope you don't mind me asking. What were the reasons behind becoming full-time FPL, and then what were the reasons for switching back out again?
Well, I was never actually a full-time content creator. I kind of became that, but the intention was never to become a full-time content creator. I always wanted to keep doing content and like my personal life and my work life are separate, because I'm too obsessed with it, and I need the separation of personal FPL and work. So I was in a job which I'd been there for 5 years. I was just completely burnt out by it, wasn't enjoying it at all, needed to do something new, and I messaged Chris, who was owner of Scout, and just said, look, I'm thinking of leaving. Is there any jobs going at Scout, basically? And there wasn't, but he very kindly basically made a job for me, which was the membership strategy manager of Scout. So basically he wanted to push memberships and work out what people wanted and bring in new tools and everything like that to kind of drive the site forward, which I thought was great, and I was kind of really happy to be a part of that. But as who was there before I was? Was it David? It must have been David. There was someone there before. No, it was Andy. Of course it was. Andy was doing the video content for Scout, and when I joined, that was the first season when he left to do his own channel first time. So I was brought in to do the membership stuff, but there was this massive hole in video because we just lost arguably the best person to ever have done video. So I started doing more and more video. And then because that was actually quite a good part of the business, because we were turning them into podcasts and we were doing videos and everything like that, that sort of became my sole focus of the role. And even though I was doing a bit towards membership and talking about strategy and doing like surveys and things, it was mostly on the video side. And I did that I was there for 2 years, and I just got completely burnt out by it. I was doing videos 3 or 4 times a week. I wasn't really using any of the skills I got from doing the PhD, like all the research background that I had. And it was just time to leave and go back to, like a normal person's job. But I always wanted to keep FPL going. I always wanted to carry on doing the content. And at that point I was doing BlackBox regularly. And Chris said, you're leaving, but we still want you to be a part of Scout, to do the Q&A and other videos and things. So I sort of got everything I wanted, really, because I was able to keep doing that stuff and then move into a job which, I look back on and I'm glad I went to Scout and I enjoyed my time there, but it was definitely the right decision to leave.
Yeah, it must be. Obviously I'm not really an FPL content creator and anywhere near being full-time or even part-time or anything yet. But the thought of like having a job where I basically you never leave your house, it sounds brilliant on paper, but then to actually be there, and it must feel almost sometimes like you can't leave your house because you've got this video to make and this video to make. I don't think I would like that I think that's exactly what. I've since I finished my PhD, I've pretty much
totally work from home. I've never been in a full-time office job or anything like that. My current role, I'm more hybrid. I go in maybe a couple of times a month, something like that. But I mostly only work from home. But I've got the option to go in. So if I'm getting a bit crazy, I go out. I think the one of the things we've scouted, a lot of the things with working on working with fantasy football stuff is stuff can just happen so quickly, like at a moment's notice. And then you go from having a really easy day to something drops at 6 p.m. and then suddenly you've got to make a video. So you're always on edge. You're always on edge a little bit that something's going to come in, or I think particularly in the summer, when there's price reveals and you're waiting for the game to launch and stuff, you're sort of waiting for it to happen, and it does, and it's quite stressful in a way, because if you're not the first one to do the content, then other people are going to beat you to it and get your views, and that was a quite a stressful part of the job. It's like you've got to react quickly to things. I wasn't always reacting quickly to things, so I was out, in the evening or something like that and missing it. And yeah, I just never felt like I was able to switch off from FPL at all, because even at the weekends when we switch off and watch football from our work life, that would be the key part of the job, basically, because I'd be watching games. What content can we make? What videos can we get out there? How's my team doing? Is everyone going to take the piss out of me when I, rock up on Monday and I'm rubbish and I'm doing videos? So, yeah, it is. I think it genuinely is quite a hard life. And I think when the hobby becomes work, and you're not enjoying something that you once really enjoyed, then I can see why that would be quite difficult. And it was for me.
Yeah. So, what I usually ask this in these questions separately, but I'll ask them together. What were your early experiences of content creation like, and how, if they have those experiences changed over time?
Yeah, I mean, well, in the early days, it was just two blokes talking about FPL, wasn't it? That's why the ScoutCast was successful and people like that format. Whereas now it's much more about flashy graphics. It's about condensing information to a point which people can understand. It's about things like TikTok videos and everything that Focal does, short, snappy things which really provide key information. And as a result of that, it's difficult for new content creators to come into the space, because there's already a higher bar that they've got to reach in terms of equipment, in terms of graphics, in terms of all the stuff they talk about. Because why would you watch Joe Blogs, who has got 20 subscribers and is talking out of his mum's cupboard, compared to Focal, who's got arguably the best animations and things out there, and is giving you the same information. So it's more challenging for content creators now.
I told my mum not to let out that I was doing it.
It's a big cupboard, Gary, to be fair. But then the other side of that is FPL as a game has got so much harder, because everyone is so much more clued up with with stats and the correlations.
The XG stats are a big thing now, aren't they? I mean, you guys have them on BlackBox, don't you?
We dabble, but but yeah, I mean, the correlations between XG and XA and points, FPL points, is through the roof. That is the main thing that we have. And I think when I first started, we'd still have things like shots in the box, chances created, that kind of thing. But XG and XA condenses it all into one metric. So although you can use other stats and you can look to see things, that really those two stats are the key drivers of points in FPL, and everyone now has access to that, because it's even on the Premier League website. So it's a lot more challenging as a game.
So, as what I usually go on to ask next is about the positives and negatives of being a content creator. So, but I'm going to intersect myself a little bit here in the positive before I ask about the positives. So, I'm going to guess or hope you would mention meeting your lovely partner Yelena. As one of the positives. And on that note, as you know, Yelena's been on a couple of times to the channel. I've interviewed her and she's interviewed me in probably the most bizarre video on my channel. Anyway, I grilled Yelena quite a bit in her interview about your relationships from sort of like an FPL perspective. So I want to avoid being accused by sexism by Yelena, if anyone else, and also I'm genuinely interested. So I'd like to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Yelena from an FPL perspective, if that's okay.
Ask me what you want. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So the first one is about how you met. So Yelena told me that the first time she ever heard from you was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, there was a photo of her and
A raptor.
a raptor on Twitter, and someone posted Beauty and the Beast, and you replied to that, be nice to Yelena. So I was gonna say, I said
I think it's don't call Yelena a beast or something like that. Yeah.
Well, I said to Yelena in the video, that sounds like the behaviour of a 10-year-old flirting in the playground. So I'm just going to give you a chance to defend yourself here.
Well, that wasn't actually the first interaction I had with her. The first interaction I had with her was she'd started doing her own YouTube video, like content, and I genuinely try and support new content creators, you know, as much as I can. I think it's a difficult space to break into. I think particularly as like a female like content creator as well. I'd like to think that I'd maybe go the extra mile to give them a bit of a boost up, because I really respect the fact it's such a male dominated sport anyway, and the community is like 95% male as well. So, you know, it takes guts, I think, to do that as a
99.7% according to my YouTube analytics.
Yeah, I don't think BlackBox is far off that. So I think like in the early days when she first started, I was in a relationship myself, and it genuinely wasn't anything other than I wanted to give her a bit of a boost. So I'd retweet some of her videos. I was working at Scout, and I was wondering, oh, actually, she's really good. These videos are really good, and something a bit different, a bit of fresh air, because they were very, you know, they were just filmed like in a room, and she was like chatting away and stuff. And I've always liked that kind of format.
She's still got that up there, her early videos, or is she?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they should still be up there. Yeah, and I used to watch them, and I used to genuinely enjoy them, and you know, and then I thought, well, maybe we can get her over to Scout, because she was affiliated with Hub at the time, because I think Will had moved quickly to bring her in, because I think he thought exactly the same as me. It's like, okay, she's good. Yeah. You know, she's gonna, you know, go on to do well here. So the first interaction I ever had with her, other than retweeting her stuff, I think I just messaged her on Twitter and just said, like, hi, like, your videos are really good. And she always laughs, because we look back and it's so cringe. I put, what exactly, because she was a fantasy football hub ambassador. And I said, what exactly is a fantasy football hub ambassador? He. It's like, oh dear. And she blanked me, completely blanked me, didn't reply.
Oh, so, okay. So this is why the 10-year-old comment, is it attention seeking?
I think it probably was. And I didn't, you know, we're talking like 6 months, 7 months. I didn't hear from her. And then the thing is that it's weird. And when we talk about some of the negatives of content creation, this would be something I talk about, and it's probably something I fell into. When you're watching people like every week, and you know, we were watching like Yelena and Raptor, and you know, they'd become friends and we're going to games and stuff. You feel like you know them, you know, even though you don't.
So I had this weird, you know, shorts just come up, like different shorts, and a short came up a couple of weeks ago with Raptor and Yelena attending a film premiere. Just completely random. I've got no. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, so when you're kind of following it, you sort of, I don't know. It's hard to explain. You feel like you know these people. Like, I'd never met Raptor, I'd never met Yelena, but you know, I was like watching them, and they were on like videos together, and they were going to games and stuff. And I kind of felt like I knew them. And I think that comment was just me trying to have a bit of banter with them both, you know. But obviously, if you don't know me, it's a really weird comment. And I think a lot of the comments and a lot of the comment, which we talk about in a bit, like some of the negative comments that you get as someone who's doing content, I think a lot of the time it is just people who are just over familiar and just think they're having a bit of banter, but they don't really know how to banter with you. No. And when you actually reply to it and say, like, if Yelena had replied to that video and gone, right, who the fuck are you? Or, you know, what are you talking about?
The comment,
who is this guys? Yeah, I'd have been like gutted, because I'd been like, oh no, I was just trying to have a bit of fun. But obviously, then it's funny when you then start dating and you look back on that stuff and you kind of cringe a bit.
Yeah, it's true, because people, like, you can put emojis at the end to try and express this is a joke or something. But if someone is really offended or something, but they're not gonna give a shit what emoji. I mean, obviously, Yelena didn't get really offended, but.
No, it's I think if she had done, I don't think we definitely wouldn't be together now. But yeah, you know, I think sometimes people put. I mean, my one, that's quite tail. It is quite funny. You know, don't call Yelena a bit. It's a fairly amusing thing. I mean, you do get some quite nasty stuff, and then people say, oh, it was just a joke, and you're like, well, how is that a joke? Like, you've just literally just offended me, or I don't know, called me annoying or something, given like a real like personality, you kind of evaluating my personality, and then I call you out on it, and then suddenly you try and backtrack. It's a bit of a weird thing to do, but yeah, you do see it every now and then.
I was gonna ask, so after I interviewed Yelena, I then did a video with Steve-O where we talked a little bit about this, and he said it was basically open, because I mean I wasn't on Twitter until a few months ago. It was basically everyone in the FPL community knew that you were going on this date, and
it's absolute nonsense. It's absolute,
okay.
It's absolute nonsense. I heard that, and I don't know where he's got that from, because I mean, I was in a relationship before that. We broke up in September, October, something like that, and I only started talking to Yelena, like actually messaging her, in mid-December, something like that. And because my previous girlfriend was also a member of the FPL community, and because there was a lot of talk about, I mean, it wasn't true, but there was a lot of people who thought Raptor and Yelena were an item because they were, posting pictures and stuff. And there was this whole kind of
film premieres together.
Yeah, everyone's like rooting for Raptor, to win Yelena's heart and all that, even though they were very clear repeatedly that they were just friends. We very, very much wanted to keep things under wrap, out of respect for the girl that I was seeing before, just not to make it a big deal, in case it didn't work out, and then suddenly everyone's like, I don't know, annoyed that I've taken her away from Raptor, or upset for us, and it's difficult, because I think particularly for her, when she's trying to make her own content and stuff, she doesn't want to be known as the guy who led Raptor on and then dumped Az after 2 months.
Female, that's like the worst thing to have.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's absolute nonsense, but that's the kind of labels that you can get attached to. So yeah, we didn't tell anyone, we were seeing each other. We went out for the first time mid-January, I think it was. Didn't tell anyone we were doing that, and then I think it got out in the end because she did a Be Real.
No.
Be Real. Be Real is like a thing you do every day. You take a picture of what you're doing, and it's supposed to, if you do it every day, it's your year in like a picture.
Okay.
Picture form. And I think she did a big Be Real, and I was in it. And I think she had someone or a couple of people from the FPL community in there who were like, hang on a minute, why is Az like out of flat on this random day?
You weren't in your underpants or something, were you?
No, nothing like that. No, very, very respectable. Very respectable.
Okay. But
and then
I
think
someone asked, like, why is Az?
Yeah, well, I think someone messaged her and was like, "Is that Az in your?" It might even have been Raptor, to be fair. Just messaged her and was like, "Is that Az in your picture?" And then we told a few people, and then we started doing. I can't remember. We did a video together, I think, for her channel where we were doing like a kind of Q&A video, and then that must have been in, I don't know, April, something like that. And that's when obviously people started to piece it together. But yeah, we were deliberately not, we on like social media and stuff, we weren't talking about it. It was quite fun because I might reply to like one of her messages and be like, no one knows that we're seeing each other and all that. But yeah, we tried.
More childish flirting, as.
Yeah, exactly. I know that is that's a 34-year-old trying to flirt a couple of years ago. But yeah, no, it was nice to kind of keep things under wraps, and since we said that we're dating, everyone's been really supportive. So it's been that side of things been really nice.
And of course, it also ends up that Raptor, who was the last interview I had on the channel, met a lovely lady himself through FPL.
Yeah,
I didn't realise.
There you go.
I didn't realise until I.
Who needs Tinder when you've got the FPL community?
And
which is 99.5% men.
And if the
0.5% of women are tip top.
And if the 0.001% of attractive females left in the community are looking for a boyfriend, FPL Have a Beer is available. I'll clip that bit and put it as a short. Yes, just more generally. So you've been in a relationship now for couple of years. Is that right?
Yeah, just over 2 years. Yeah.
Does it help as a couple both to be invested in FPL in terms of like the relationship dynamics?
Yes and no. I think I'd say mostly yes. I mean, it's obviously nice to share a hobby with your partner, and I think doing the vlogs with Yels is something I've really enjoyed, and something that she's really pushed on over the last, well, since this season really.
It's absolutely incredible content. I mean, everyone I've spoken
It's
to,
amazing. Yeah, it's great, and she's so good at the editing. Like I can't do the editing side of stuff. You know, everything I do is live because I can't sit and edit. Like I was listening to FPL Nightmare talking about spending, what did he say, like 40 hours a week or something doing his videos.
He said he spends 20 hours on
Yeah,
it's usually about a 20-minute video, and I think the majority of that is editing. I mean, I hopefully, as he, does interviews and stuff, like obviously he did his first one to me, he'll perhaps, I think he's very much a perfectionist. Hopefully that will sort of drop off a bit. Maybe, I don't know. I hope for his sake.
Again, though, it's when you're trying to break into a space and be seen and be kind of respected, and you've got to be doing something a little bit different, and you've got to be doing the basics and the fundamentals right. And people do notice if you're uploading videos and there are typos and animations are wrong and colors are off, or if you're using the wrong pictures.
I don't give
all
it.
that.
I don't give a shit as my stuff goes.
Yeah, but you're like me, so you like doing the discussion like based stuff like
That's
this.
true.
This is a lot easier to edit. Like you can just go through and cut out whole sections that you don't really want and things like that.
We've had one technical mess up so far that I have to edit out. And that's it. Yeah, that's it basically, isn't it? But yeah.
That's what I mean. Imagine doing this and adding in, animations and player pictures popping up and sounds and all that stuff. Like that's my nightmare because
your FPL nightmare.
Exactly. FPL nightmare is living my FPL nightmare because I just couldn't do it. I don't have the skills. I don't have the patience. I don't have the time. It just wouldn't work for me at all. And there's a lot of prep that goes into doing BlackBox. Mark actually takes a lot of that on himself in terms of building the tables and things. Because I think it probably takes him 3 or 4 hours to put the stuff together for BlackBox, but. If it was taking us 15, 20 hours to do BlackBox, we just wouldn't do it. We just don't have the time to do it.
Raptor told me he spends 30 hours a week making graphics for his.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all. It is so time confusing. Even when you do a short video and you're cutting out, with the thumbnails, for example, for BlackBox, like finding a player, cutting it out, changing the title, messing around with Photoshop, like things like that take half an hour, 40 minutes, and that's for a thumbnail, let alone editing a 30-minute, 35-minute video, editing out all your ums and ahs and all that stuff. I just couldn't do it. Fair play to anyone that does, because I just couldn't.
Anyway, to return us to I went off on a tangent there, not you. In terms of relationship dynamics, being both being FPL players and content creators, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's definitely got its good parts. It's great to watch games together. I like this kind of rivalry that we've got with each other because it's all done in quite good fun most of the time. Unless it's Chris Wood, if Yelena has a player who scores, I'm quite happy. Unless it's him, no, it's just bad.
The last time I had her on, I kind of joked to her that, a crap player might beat me this season, and sort of implied that she might be. But Chris Wood is doing so well. I honestly think she could well end up beating me this season. And we'll get on to.
It's nice playing it with her because she's not like really into like all the stats and all the stuff like that. She still plays it quite innocently, like the game. Like she'll watch a game and be like, "Oh, McGinn played well in that game. I might bring him in for a bit of a punt." And you're like, "Oh, but no, his XG is much lower than the other options at the same price." And she's like, "No, it's fine. He'll do all right." And then he scores like 2 weeks in a row, like what happened last year. That's how it used to be. That's what I used to do. I used to watch the game and think, "Oh, I love watching this player. I'm going to bring him into my team." And then, you celebrate when they do well and no one else has really got them. I mean, the flip side of it is that we are both really affected by it. So. I think she probably mentioned the Foden debacle of our holiday last year when he got a hat trick. She didn't own him, and she was bloody miserable. Like, she basically ruined an evening of our holiday because she just couldn't get out of this slump that her rank had, 50% drop and all that. And I have it too. At the weekends, I remember when. I'd sold Ollie Watkins because he was like yellow flagged, and then he scored a brace because he started in the team, and I sold him for Darwin Núñez, who got like a yellow card, and I was just in a pissy mood for like 2 days. So yeah, there's both sides of that, but at least there's a little bit more understanding about it, because if you're with somebody to get the game, then yeah, but you are doubling your chance of it happening to one of you, unless you've got the same team. So yeah, pros and cons.
You can sort of cry into each other's arms, I guess, if
yeah
stuff goes wrong.
Yeah, I think if we had a really like competitive relationship, it would be a lot more difficult. I think because we are actually we both want to see each other do well, which I think is nice. Like, if Yelena was like first in the world, I wouldn't begrudge her. I'd be really happy for her, and I think hopefully she'd feel the same like this way. And I think that helps. Whereas, if we were like fighting to the death every week to try and get ahead of each other, it'd be even more stressful.
So this one is a little bit of a joke question, but would you recommend to any male or I guess female players whose partners do not play the game, that they try? Well, this isn't a joke really. Should they try and get their partner involved in playing?
Yeah, I think so. I think if there's an interest to do it, I think football is amazing for lots of reasons. I think going to games and going to stadiums and absorbing the atmosphere of games is great. And I think if you don't understand that because you've never been into football, I think FPL gives you a way into football, which is what I love. That's what did it for me. And I think if you can get, because football's got a bad reputation, and there's some grounds that you probably never go to, but I genuinely think if you went to, if you had a missus who started playing FPL and she didn't really know about football, and you took her to like a Brentford game, like a decent Brentford game, because their stadium is great, and you have a bit of a day out and you go and enjoy the atmosphere and you chat to the people next to you.
It's not like taking people to football stadiums in the 1980s, is it?
No, exactly. There's a lot more, and I think a lot of grounds get slated because there's no atmosphere there and stuff. And it's like, well, sometimes people just want to go with their kids and just enjoy a match and not have to sing stupid chants and swear at people and stuff.
Okay, that's interesting. So last question before I stop. What's the word?
Hounding.
Grilling you on your relationship. Do you two give each other's tips on who they should recommend in their FPL videos or their teams?
Oh my God. I mean, she doesn't listen to anything I say, and rightly so, because she's beaten me, well, both seasons. Well, how many seasons has it even been? It's been 2 years. Has it been 2 seasons? I think we just started dating, and then the first season ended. She beat me that year. Then she just beat me comfortably last year as well. So
she did,
I don't know why.
She did mention that in her own interviews.
Did she? Yeah. Okay. I bet she did. I mean, there are certain things. I think because she knows that I spend so much time looking at stats and stuff like that. Like sometimes she is interested in it, so she might just ask me, what the stats are for a certain player or something like that, and maybe sometimes that influences what she says. I mean, I told her in her first vlog of the season, she showed me her team for the first time, and I said to her, "Team looks great. Don't pick Chris Wood. Awful pick. Awenai will be back. Forest don't score many goals. Not on pens with Gibbs White."
Imagine if she'd taken that advice.
Well, exactly. That's what I mean. And good. Like I've never done BlackBox and spoken to try and change what people want to do. Like I talk about things, and you can present the evidence and you can show things, but ultimately it's down to people to make their own mind up. And she rightly listens to what I say and discredits it, which is great. It's worked really well for over 2 years. Got absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. It's on the flip side. Like I do sometimes ask her for advice, and genuinely when she tells me something, she's very good at she's a very good sounding board, because what she'll do is she'll remind me of things in the past that I've been really annoyed with, which is that kind of black box thinking mentality. Like I'll say, should I play, Robinson or pick, I don't know, like Leif Davis this week as an example? And she'll be like, well, if you pick Leif Davis, you're going to be really annoyed when Robinson gets another assist. Like, are you sure you want to go through that? And I'll be like, yeah, do you know what? That's right. I am just overthinking it, aren't I? Obviously, just play Robinson and not try and play Leif Davis away at Spurs because he got like a decent corner last week. And most of the time that advice is actually really good. So you could say it's quite a good combination, because I look, maybe it's a bit, maybe I'm the Mark Sutherns in this relationship. I'm the analytical one, and she's the Granville. Oh God. Yeah, she's a bit more stable in terms of those things. So yeah, well, it works quite well.
So open out the question, which was, what are the positives of being a content creator? Beyond meeting and dating the lovely Yelena, what are the other general positives and negatives, I guess, but we could take them separately if you want.
I mean, the positives are like anyone who does these videos or wants to get into, you do them for entertainment, right? You do them for entertainment for yourself because you enjoy making content and talking to people and talking about something that we've got a passion for. But also I love the fact that hopefully people listen to BlackBox and other things I've done and enjoy it, they get entertained from it. And I think it was particularly apparent to me over COVID times, when I was doing content with Mark, and people would message us and say, I'm in my 1-bed flat at home. I haven't seen anyone for 3 weeks. Just wanted to say how much I appreciate you doing content because it's helping me get through the day and stuff. And there was people messaging us from like hospital saying I've been in hospital for like a week, with COVID, and I'm listening to you, waiting for BlackBox is really helping me get through it. And you listen to that and be like, Jesus Christ, it's ridiculous the impact that you can actually have doing this stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing, and this is what I mean. It's a very niche community still, in the grand scheme of things. But because it's such a obsessional, group of people, and we talk about I think there's a lot of tribal loyalty to certain podcasts and certain creators and things. When you're part of that, it feels really nice because you've got people who listen to you and look forward to the stuff that you're creating. And so obviously when I'm out and someone comes up to me and goes, "Oh, you're Az from FPL BlackBox, aren't you?" Like you feel really happy about it. It's like, oh, not only have you recognised me, but you've actually come out of your way to say hi and say that you really enjoy the podcast and stuff. I love that side of it. And that's not why I started doing it. I started doing it just because I enjoyed doing it, but it's definitely a nice part of it.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Any other positives?
Well, I mean, the community generally is great. For the most part, obviously there's some wrong ones out there. It seems to be more and more of them growing over the year, which is a shame because when I first, well, I'll come and talk about the negatives of the community. When I first started, there was a few knocking about, and then it got better, and then it seems to have gone back to how it maybe was back then. But generally speaking, I mean, I've met some really, really good friends through FPL. I'm in multiple WhatsApp groups with people. I talked about the Cash League at the start of this stream. I'm still in I'm still in a group that was formed off the back of the Cash League, which was when I first started doing content in like 2009 or something like that. Like these are people that I've now known for over 10 years. It's crazy. Like 13, 14 years with some of these people. We meet up every year and we go to Belushi's in London, have a few drinks and watch a game. Like that side of stuff is amazing, and that isn't. I don't think you'll get that from a lot of things. Like you could be really into gardening, or you could be really into, I don't know. There's lots of things you could be into and have as a hobby and be talking to people about it, but there's few things that bring people together like football does. And when you actually meet up and watch games together and celebrate your points and all that stuff, I don't think there's many things quite as cool as it is when you're watching football and talk about FPL with people who you've known for ages and you get on really well with. So yeah, I mean, that's the main part. I mean, to be honest, the community is the main reason why I even bother doing half the content and stuff that I do, because if it was just me talking and you got a couple of replies and I wasn't really chatting to anyone and making friends and networking, I probably wouldn't bother.
I hope Andrew doesn't mind me mentioning this, because I know you said last night on the on BlackBox about him going to an FPL meets. Me and him have actually been talking about going to the next one.
Good.
So
good.
Yeah. But because he's a carer and lives up up north, it might take a bit of arranging, but hopefully. So
just really quickly on that. I mean, it is a great thing. I mean, there's obviously meets, which is the free to go to. It's at a pub. There'll be 20, 30 people there, all FPL addicts. Is a really great entry point into meeting people. And then obviously you've got Fest as well, which happens in August.
That's the one we were thinking about. Sorry, yeah.
So that's the much bigger one. So there's a couple of hundred people there. And what I love about that is you go and you see people who have been brave enough to go on their own. And you've got to be brave to go to an event like that on your own when you don't really know anyone personally. What I always say is every time I've gone there, I've walked in, I've seen a few awkward people walk in, not really know anyone. Within 10 minutes, they're in a group, showing their team off to people, talking about, can you believe this guy's got, whoever in their side, and should we get a drink? And it is such a great communal part of the thing, because I don't care what anyone says, and I know there's been criticism about it and all that, but there's no egos there. Like, everyone there is just there because they enjoy playing fantasy football, and they just want to chat to people who enjoy the same thing. And that is the case every single one of those meets or fests that I've gone to. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about going and you're worried about going on your own, come up to me. I'll chat to you for half an hour about FPL. Go up to any of the content creators and they'll talk to you. You'll meet friends there. You'll meet likewise people. It's such a good thing to get part of.
I'm a big fan of FPL family, and I always used to, Sam and Lee would always say, you can come with us, meet us beforehand and all that.
Yeah.
And I was always tempted to do it, but I never got the guts.
You should. I mean, they were there last time. They had quite a few of their Patreons there, and they spent hours, just sat at a table. Their patrons would be there. They'd be chatting. They'd go. Other people would join and come in and talk to them. Like, you won't have a problem chatting to people. Even if you're quite shy, and not all of us are great in groups and crowds and stuff. But I know people who have gone who are really shy, and now they've made really good friends, and they're much more involved in stuff. And would say without a shadow of a doubt that it was a good decision to go.
And just to double down on a point that I probably shouldn't have started, if there were any single FPL females out there wanting a date for Fest, FPL Have a Beer is available.
Look me up.
So to reverse Ash, what about the negatives of being a content creator, man?
Yeah, I mean, the negatives are like it's like sometimes the comments and stuff do get you down, and it does work both ways. Like I've like talking about mental health. I wasn't in a great place like a couple of years ago, and you're doing content, and then you're getting negative like comments, like I said, quite personal stuff about and it's normally from the same people. Like, it's the same people coming up who just seem to have a genuine like dislike for you, which I've always found a bit bizarre, because if you don't like me, just don't watch my stuff. Why have you got to comment on every video to say you don't like me, or you don't like what I'm talking about, you think I'm useless at the game, why is anyone listening to him, we're only here for all that kind of stuff. It grates on you over a while, and I've got a lot better at shutting it out, but sometimes you're just not in the mood for it,
And then they moan about Mark saying he's going to do one thing and not doing another. They'll find something to moan about everything, won't they?
Well, this is it, and there is this kind of argument that if you're putting yourself out in the public space, you've got to expect a bit of stick at like some of the time, and I think there's a line though, isn't there? There's a line that people sometimes cross where, saying they didn't enjoy a video, or BlackBox is too long, or I'm an idiot because I suggested a player who didn't do well. That's the one thing I'm completely like, you call me out on the stupid stuff I say and things like that. But when it becomes actual quite personal stuff and it's repetitive, this is what I don't like about some of the notorious trolls in the community. It's just the repetitive nature of just bash constantly. So whenever you log on, you see comment, your name's flashed up and you've got them talking about you. Then you've got other people like springboarding off that, and they're writing horrible stuff about you. Like, we're all human at the end of the day, and it does affect us. It does get you down. Sometimes you've had a shit day at work, you've had an argument with your girlfriend, whatever, and then you go on Twitter, which is supposed to be a bit of an escape, and you've got 20 comments of people saying you're an idiot or stupid, or you're fat, or you're useless, shit rank, all that stuff. It gets to you.
I'm not sure if I should say this, but if I decide afterwards I shouldn't have done, I'll edit it out. I was thinking about inviting probably the most notorious troll, who I won't name, on for an interview, just to see if he would, back himself up or explain himself. I mean, quite a few people told me not to do it, but then I also found out that FPL Juice have invited the same person.
He wouldn't do it. This is the thing.
Exactly, and that's what pisses me off, is that they won't back it up, will they? It's just the keyboard warriors.
This is it. You've got people who are obviously very insecure in their own lives, have probably got quite shitty lives in whatever way. They might claim they're really happy. I do feel a bit sorry for them in some ways, but also I think they are scumbags a lot of the time. And before the person who we're obviously alluding to in this, there was FPL Chef back in the early days who used to make videos about content creators, and this was in the early days. And when I first started, I didn't know about this. Yeah, when I first started doing videos, he had a whole series which was relatively popular with people, because it was like the earliest days of trolling content creators. When Twitter first came out, he would just do videos mocking like people, mocking people's weight, mocking the way they spoke.
Really?
Really like nasty stuff that I will never forgive or forget. And in the end, he ended up getting reported. Someone reported him to work, at his work, and he got sacked off the back of it.
Wow.
And I remember those days because I'd never really experienced online trolling in that way. Like, obviously, you got a bit at school and, you know, AOL and MSN Messenger and stuff. You get people talking, but this is people that I didn't even know, right? This is people that
the saddest thing
I'd never met.
The person I'm alluding to actually put some great, really funny posts up. Do you know? So it's just like, and that I find that the saddest thing is like they obviously.
This is it. Like, you've got people who they can choose how they direct certain things. They could direct how they choose to direct their humor, or who they direct it to, or the ways in which they do it, and they choose to do it in such a negative, horrible way, and then can't seem to understand when hundreds of people that I've seen call them out on it still think they're not doing anything wrong, still think they're being a positive part of a community, which, you know, football's got a bad rep a lot of the time anyway for dickheads, and you're actively just choosing to be a dickhead in an area of football where you should all be supporting each other more. It just blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind. But there are always going to be people like that, and I think things are just going to get worse because Twitter is awful, and Twitter feeds. And you've negativity.
You've left, I think. I heard last night. Is that right? Twitter.
Yeah, I basically quit Twitter as soon as Blue Sky came out, and the thought of moving to a platform that all the dickheads seem to like hate. Like, they hated the idea that Blue Sky was a thing. Oh, all the lefties are going there. I'm like, brilliant. Oh, platform all the lefties who actually just are quite nice to each other, and I haven't got to look at, you know, far right posts about
my tier list video. I've actually got a comment. I agree with you. I really agree with you. Like BlackBox, I really enjoy it, even though I have to listen to that lefty as.
Yeah, I know. I guess I get stuff like that all the time. And do you know what? Any comment like that, I'm like, do you know what? Fair enough, because I would rather be where I am than supporting Elon Musk and Donald Trump. That's just how I feel, you know. And I know people will. I'm
on your side though.
People will listen to that and say, "Oh, Az is pathetic." You know, he's probably a Green Party support and all that. But I'm just like, there's certain lines across, and I completely accept that people have got different beliefs and things. But for me, Twitter became a cesspit. Like, the For You page of Twitter is just the worst way to spend my time ever. And I can't help but flick through it just because you almost get it's not even I don't know what it is, but you get hooked into just reading and watching crap on there, and you just get more and more annoyed with stuff. And then you flick over to like the following page, and then you've got people arguing about content creators and saying how shit everything is, and look at this guy's crappy rank. And I'm like, I've spent an evening on this, and I've got nothing good from it at all. Switch to Blue Sky. I've got like 4,000 followers or something like that. Every interaction I have is good, like on there, you know. And I'm using it less. I'm spending more time doing stuff I actually enjoy. And yeah, I'm sorry if it offends you, but I have not missed Twitter in the time that I've been gone. And I do pop on there every now and then. I might do a retweet or talk to someone, but I'm not checking it every day. And it's been a good decision for me, definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, and I completely agree. So we'll get out of the negatives. I think we've been around a bit too much on the negatives there. So I like to think as that there might be some up and coming FPL content creators who watch this, or, you know, either recently started or wanting to start. What advice would you give to anyone wanting to start FPL content creation?
It is tough, and, you know, I've seen loads of these videos with people giving advice. It's very easy to say you've got to do it because you enjoy it, and I think that's very true. Like, if you've got to enjoy making content, you've got to, you know, if you're going to do all the editing and spend hours doing it, you've got to enjoy doing it. When it starts to feel like a job or feel like a slog, it becomes very difficult to do it consistently. And the trouble with that is that you are always going to look at your views. You're always going to look at, you know, how many people are watching your stuff. And if you don't feel like that is improving at a steady rate, that's when you can decide to pack it all in. But you have got to be consistent. You've got to keep churning them out. So it's I don't know, it's like a vicious cycle. You've got to enjoy it, but then you've also got to churn it out when you're not enjoying it. So yeah, how do you kind of make that work? you've also got to be a bit different. You've got to be doing stuff that not everyone is doing, and get yourself a little niche in there, which isn't easy. And I think, look at FPL Nightmare, the way he's doing his videos with like the WWE kind of not soundtrack, but the way he talks and things like that. Like it's something
promos is the way you put it.
Promos, yeah, exactly, like stuff like that. You've got to have good equipment. You've got to have at least like basically good equipment to do stuff. Like you've got to have a mic. Like you can't be using a headset mic I used to use for Skype.
And get a mic and actually speak into it correctly.
Get a mic you can speak into.
Which is what I struggle with.
I think that is my advice for people, is that if you're going to make a go of it, you need to get the basics like right. Like you need to make sure people can hear you. You need to make sure people want to like watch your stuff, because there is so much competition that you'll just go somewhere else. And stick to stuff that you enjoy. I think that's the thing. Stick to stuff that you enjoy talking about, even when the enjoyment is low. You still can do it, because if it becomes too much of a bore, then you're just gonna pack it up. None of this is groundbreaking. Be consistent. I think Twitter is a really poor way of. People seem to think that if you post on Twitter and you get retweets and stuff, people are going to watch your content. I will tell you right now, Twitter is fucking useless for pushing people towards videos. I mean, I've got 55, 60,000 followers on Twitter. If I post a BlackBox video on there that we're live, I'm not joking, 5 people might follow that link to go to it. Like the Fantasy Football Scout channel has got over 100,000 subscribers. When they post a link to a video, does that video suddenly jump from 1,000 to 10,000 views? No.
Was that the same before Elon Musk took over?
Yeah, it's always been like that. Right. It's always been like that. I don't really know the reason for it, but if you ask any of the main content creators, I've spoken to Andy about it in Focal, and you do it because it's better than not doing it, because you're still going to get views, but don't rely on it like in the same way. It's very hard to build up traction, and actually you've got to get the SEO right. You've got to get your titles right. You've got to get your descriptions right. You've got to be found on YouTube when people are searching for FPL. You've got to stand out a little bit too. And yeah, you just going on and posting and getting some people retweeting your stuff isn't going to work. You need to create a bit of a buzz about stuff. You need to get, I think what Nightmares, I keep bringing it back to Nightmare because I think what he's doing is really well. And the same with Yelena as well. Like people aren't just, she's not just begging people to retweet her stuff. She's got people like Harry, like you, like other people saying, this stuff is genuinely really good stuff. You should watch it. And when people are doing that, then that's when you get more views. Yeah. And that's what you need. You can't just be sending a message to all the content creators saying, can you retweet my things? You want them to say, look, can you watch this? Can you tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong? If you actually enjoy it, can you send me, it's like reviews, isn't it? If you go on Google reviews and you just see a 4-star review with nothing written, what does that mean? If you see a 5-star review with 3 sentences, you're going to pick that restaurant every time.
Case in point, you spent 5 minutes talking about, I mean, you weren't even really talking about my channel, you were talking about a 5-minute about my interview with Nightmare. I got 5 subscribers for that, and you weren't even really talking about me. Like,
yeah, but exactly that has the same impact as, you know, probably if you got it tweeted by an account with 100,000 people, and we probably had about 300 people watching live, but because we're actually talking about it. But again, these are really easy things to say, and it's not always easy to get a buzz drawn and stuff. But all you can do to put yourself in the situation to get that is do stuff that you're interested in, be passionate about it, get the basics right, do something a bit different, and be consistent. And then hopefully people will watch and enjoy it.
Great advice, Az. So last one before we go on to talk about mental health. Okay, so I'm gonna break this down a bit because I know Yelena. I've already know the answer to this is yes, because when I asked Yelena, she said you have quite often get recognised as from FPL Scout BlackBox when you go on holiday. Had you ever been recognised before? Because one of the things I said to Yelena actually was it would make it much more easy for me to go up to someone and talk if I saw you and Yelena, because then there's like a double confirmation. But like, had you been recognised many times before getting together with Yelena? And did you get recognised on your most recent holiday?
I was going to talk about this with without sounding big-headed. Yeah, I mean, I've been recognised. I think particularly since I started doing the FPL show, So actually doing the TV stuff, I think it's increased. I mean, before I started doing BlackBox, I never got recognised. I think I did BlackBox for a year and a half, and then I was brought onto the FPL show, and that coincided with FPL really growing and becoming outside of a thing. Like it used to be, I used to go to, like a FPL meetup, and some people would be like, "Oh, I watch you on the ScoutCast. Like, good to see you, and let me buy you a beer and stuff like that." But now, I mean, the other week I was getting the train to work, and I was sat opposite someone, and he kept looking at me. And then as I got off the train, he went, "I've got to ask, you do FPL BlackBox?" And I was like, yeah. And he was like, "Oh, I listen every week." And I was like, bloody hell, this random guy in like East Croydon happens to watch it. And
Lovely
I remember, the loveliest. But yeah, I remember the main one was a few years ago when I think it was when my uni mates actually realised I was doing something that wasn't just completely fucking stupid. Like we were at I think we were at a Hard Rock Cafe, and a guy just came. We were sitting at a table, about 6 of us, and the guy came up to him and was like, "This comes sound really weird, but I watch you every week." And like all my mates just like, "What the hell like is this?" as if you've been like picked out, like you're a celebrity. Like you're not a celebrity.
Like a movie star or something.
I'm like, "Yeah, boys, just get your autographs out. I'll give them a sign." But yeah, it does happen every now and then, and yeah, it is a fun part. I didn't get recognised this holiday actually. I did. We went to Cape Verde last year, and I did last year. I was literally sunbathing, and the guy came up to me and went, "Love your content, mate." And I was like, "This is random." I'm in Africa, and there's a guy who watches BlackBox, but yeah, not on the most recent one.
Cool. Okay, so in the interviews now, I mean, I know you've watched quite a few of these. I like to go on to talk a little bit about FPL mental health. Before I do that, if you're still watching at this stage, please do like the video to help it get out there to more people to see it, and please subscribe to help the channel get up to 400 subscribers. It would mean the world to me if you did that. So I kind of split this into two parts, although very few people answer it in two parts. Has FPL ever had an effect on your mental health and mood? And if you can remember back this far, before you were a content creator and then as a content creator, and I'm guessing it's probably worse as a content creator, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most of my experiences with FPL have been as a content creator. I mean, like I said, that Roque Santa Cruz one stands out because that was the first time I was actually genuinely annoyed with FPL, and I realised it could actually have a bit of an impact on my mood. I think as a content creator, it's definitely worse because you're judged on it, right? Like when you're just playing in a mini league with friends, you come bottom, you hold the wooden spoon, but you're all respectfully a lot of the time, back in those days, people were finishing 1 million in the world, 1.5 billion. They might have forgotten to check their team 5 times in a row, something like that. I remember I used to win the uni mini league every year, and then one year I got beaten to it, and someone beat me, and everyone was like celebrating and laughing. But that didn't bother me, that wasn't the same as it is now, because I was kind of like, well, I've won it for 6 years in a row. It's about bloody time someone won it. So I quite enjoyed that side of it, and I'd say that's outside of the content creation. I think once you start doing content creation, you immediately have extra pressure on you, because and for better or worse, that if you're doing better, more people will watch you. And that is a simple fact. If you're making content and you're first in the world, you will get more viewers than if you're making content and you're 1.2 million in the world, because people want to see people doing well, and people trust and validate, how people are doing based on their rank, which is, in a lot of ways, is completely fair enough. I would argue that there's other things you can get from content creation that isn't just about rank and advice. Watching FPL Harry or Praz or someone like that, they managed to combine kind of entertainment and great finishes as well. So you kind of get a bit of both worlds, but some people might prefer a more discussion-based podcast like this. And
can I ask, because Raptor said something very, I mean, he called the career as a content creator performance related in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Do you think some of that pressure is relieved from the fact you do a podcast? So either one of you is doing well, or, if Mark's doing well and you're not doing well, there's still the rivalry there. Do you get what I mean?
In a way, I think Mark and I have a easier ride with it because we've been around for so long and people know who we are, and we can both be doing terribly in the trenches and people will still watch us because they buy into the stuff we're talking about and that thing. Like Mark and I spent half a season at like 3.5 million, and we weren't losing viewers off the back of it. And respectfully, if you're doing a podcast with a mate and you're both 3.5 million and you're trying to grow as a channel, people aren't going to watch you because it's very different. If you're fifth in the world and your mate's 10th, you're going to get hundreds of thousands of views. That is just how it is. You need to have that initial buy-in, I think, before you can kind of get away almost with having a poor season. And I think someone trying to do content creation from a point of not having a great rank history is really difficult. And I don't want that to put off people who are looking to get into it and maybe don't have a great rank, but you are going to find it harder doing content if you haven't got a great rank history than if you did. I think that's just fact, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sorry.
Not that I agree with that. I mean, there are exemptions. Well, I mean, Planet FPL James, for example, is probably the most knowledgeable person about football I've ever met in my life. I trust him. I regularly check into him for advice with my team or particularly Spurs stuff because he's a big Spurs fan. I don't think he's ever finished in the top 10k. Like he normally finishes in around like 100k or something like that. Like he hasn't got that kind of pedigree. But because he's so knowledgeable, it doesn't even matter. No one even mentions James's rank history because that he's really kind of knowledgeable about stuff. But I remember when like David Mundy came into the ScoutCast and he was replacing Andy or Luke or someone like that, and his best finish was like 300k. Absolutely ridiculed, like slated for ages.
Really?
Andy North as well. Yeah, Andy North. I mean, I brought Andy North in when I was working at Scout, and he was like heading up the ScoutCast and be like, oh, why have you got Andy? He's never finished like in the top like 10k and all this. And it's like, yeah, but he's good. He's entertaining. He taught, it's not just about that, but you do have a harder time if you've not had the finishes.
Definitely. So one thing I thought we could talk about here is the infamous, and it is infamous because it got in the Sun newspaper, Tsimikas benching, and then bench boost, if I remember correctly.
No, that wasn't the Sun. The Sun was the week before when I got an 11-point game week.
Oh, okay. I didn't realise that. Okay.
Yeah, that was
what
made the Sun.
Let's take them separately. 11-point game week in the Sun. What the hell was that like?
I mean, that was surreal. I mean, I was having a really bad season anyway. I was right down in the trenches. 2-3 million is one of those starts of the season where I got the start wrong. I was bringing in the wrong players. It was all just a complete disaster. And what I remember about that week was I actually genuinely felt I was in quite a good place. I was like, right, I've had like 9 weeks of absolute hell. Looked at my team. I've got Son, I've got Haaland, I've got Salah.
It always goes the worst.
Here.
It always goes the worst when you feel that, doesn't it?
It's just absolutely unbelievable. And I went into the final game with 12. I had 12 points and 3 players left. And I ended up on 11 points.
That's incredible. I don't think I've ever had less than 22. I mean,
I had Son, Maddison, and Destiny Udogie. Destiny Udogie got sent off. Maddison went off at half time, and Son blanked, and it equaled -1.
Do you have any idea how the Sun picked up on that? I mean, are they monitoring as his FPL team?
I think it might have been the Star. It might be the Star actually. I think they have like a fantasy football section or something like that, and I posted and just posted my team and just said, I've played this game for 15 years. I've got 11 points. That's less than if all my players just turned up, because you'd expect to get 11 doubled, 22, and then you're captain, so you expect to get at least 24 points. And I ended up with 11, and it was, I posted that. And I think that's got to be my most viral tweet that I've ever posted. It had kind of thousands of likes and stuff, and and then I think someone from the Star picked it up and did a little article about it. And it was like FPL experts manages just 11 points. The week out, sorry.
So I was just going to say, if I remember the Daily Star, it's just naked women, isn't it? So was it tits?
Yes, my sexy hairy leg, and then my 11-point game.
I was thinking tits, FPL tit.
FPL tit, that'd be clever. Well, I don't think they do the tits anymore, do they? Because like the page 3 stuff hasn't really happened. So instead, there's more room for FPL.
I definitely haven't bought the Daily Star for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't know what mags you're buying, Gary, but I think we can all imagine.
Actually, when we mentioned earlier that my FPL research being picked up and stupid headlines. I can't remember, but the most stupid headline was on the Daily Star. It was like, doctor says FPL can kill you or something. It wasn't that bad, but it was something ridiculous. So
they are the most dramatic,
stupid
newspaper name.
What
then
about
a week later was when I bench boosted by accident.
Oh, it's only a week later. So this is the Shimicas.
This is the Simicast one. It was literally a week later, and I think I was still reeling from everything that had happened before, and I think that's why a lot of people maybe thought that I did it, on purpose to kind of because I'd got the traction from the start.
You wanted you wanted to be in a Daily Star 2 weeks in a row.
I mean, to that I just say I'm so competitive and so obsessed with this game that the thought of sabotaging my own team to get a few more followers is just absolutely mad. No, what happened was I must have just pressed the button, not realised. The funniest one though, and Yelena always laughs at, was someone was watching BlackBox and put in the comment section, "Bench boost is on," because they could see the blue banner around the bench boost. But I thought they meant like, "Go on, lads, bench boost is on, like play the chip." And so I was like, I'm going to play my bench boost with this rubbish bench. What are you talking about? I remember literally seeing that comment and thinking, I'd be a madman to play it. I had a goalkeeper that wasn't playing. I had Kabore away at United. It was never an option.
I will agree with the font they had to show whether it was
ridiculous.
It was crap. It was terrible. I mean, they've changed it now, haven't they?
Yeah, the thing was, what people couldn't understand was on the app, it was different. So on the app, you had to select it, I think, at the top, and it said in quite clear letters, like, bench boost active. But I only used the desktop version. I even used a desktop version on my phone. And at that point, all the stuff was at the bottom. So you could activate it at the bottom. It would then put the little square around. And then somehow I managed to save the team. So when I checked my team, unless I'd noticed that blue background, which I would never have noticed, I wouldn't have seen it was on, and then I didn't. But honestly, my heart. You talk about bad moments. When I posted my team a minute before the deadline, like I normally do, and Andy Slippers messaged me and WhatsApped me and was like, "As your bench boost is on," and I went onto the app and then it was game updating. Oh. I was like, "Fuck, that's it. He's right. It is on." And I had all these comments from people being like, "Your bench boost is on," and all that. Yeah, that wasn't fun. But what can you do? It's done, isn't it? You just got to laugh it off. And luckily, I ended up with a better bench boost score than a lot of people got that season. Incredible.
So the next one I've got for mental health. This one is a bit of a joke. Has the fact your girlfriend has beaten you every single season since you've been with her? Does that have any effect on the old noggin?
No, you know what? Happy wife, happy life, they say, don't they?
I knew you'd say that.
If she's happy, if she's happy, I'm happy. No, like I said, I don't think we haven't really got an ultra competitive relationship with staff. I think we're both quite competitive people, but we don't really let it affect. If we're playing a game of badminton or something, then yeah. But most of the time we're quite supportive with it. And like I said earlier, I think we both want to see each other doing well. So nah. She can carry on beating me. I don't mind as long as I start improving. Then it's all good.
I think it's probably likely to happen again this season with Chris Wood. What advice?
I hope not.
What advice would you give to someone as who's struggling with their mental health as a result of FPL this season?
Yeah, tricky one. I mean, it might come a point when you do. I know of people that have stopped playing completely because they feel it's not particularly positive for them to be a part of it. And I know there's a lot of links to gambling and stuff like that. And I think if you've got a really addictive personality and you're picking players and you're finding that your mood is always massively bogged down by it, and the negatives outweigh the positives, then taking a year off and reevaluating, like a lot of people are doing, isn't anything that I would say not to do if you feel like you've got to that point. There are things you can do to negate some of the negatives, though. I think we talked about Twitter. I think particularly avoiding Twitter on match days as well can really help. I absolutely hate with every part of my body gloating posts, like gloating people, even just simple things like when someone like, Chris Wood scored his hat trick and someone's posted a picture of Chris Wood, or a gif of Chris Wood. It's like, what is the point of that? Like, all you're doing is just everyone who's got him is like, yay, and everyone who hasn't got him feels shit. Like, I don't know. I think you've got a bit more of responsibility as a content creator not to do that, like just not to be so, because it's an arrogance thing. It's literally just, look at me, I've got this player. It's very different if like the Moyes thing was in my mind, and I'm not the police on this, but if you went for Moyes, you did something a bit different. You scored a last-minute goal. If you're celebrating Moyes, you can't begrudge people like that. But when you're posting gifs of like Palmer captain and Wood and stuff like that, I just really don't like that stuff. And it's much worse around match days because that's when the goals are going in. So avoid Twitter on match days. I'm really trying this year to avoid checking flash score or like live or sofa score when matches are in play. And I'm not watching them.
When Yelena came on, I asked her opinion on FPL live rank, and she said, "I'm in the unfortunate position of being with a partner who checks literally every time someone kicks a ball."
I know. And I'm trying to get better with it. Like I do think that if I'm out at 3:00, I am better at not, every time my phone vibrates, not getting my phone out to check the scores and stuff like that. I want to stop doing that because I find it only pisses me off, right? Like, because there's a lot of, not always the case, but a lot of the time there's more players that can hurt you than players that you'll be happy if they do something. So, particularly if your players aren't even playing, like, you could not even own Anthony Gordon, but then all your players are playing on Sunday and then you see Anthony Gordon's got a brace and you're pissed off for all of Saturday, even though your equivalent of Anthony Gordon hasn't even played yet. You're still annoyed because you don't have him and he's scored. So condensing that towards the end of the day, or even like at half time or after the game is something I've tried to do.
I just check it on the evening.
Or in the evening. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
sorry. What I really,
I was going to say, I will admit that live FPL does still, like, if I am doing that or I am watching a game, I think particularly when I've got like if I've got two defenders in a game and I'm watching the match and it gets to 60 minutes and they got the clean sheet and I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's done for my rank. And then obviously they lose the clean sheet 5 minutes later and you're like, well, why did I bother checking that? I'm just miserable.
Well, I really love the final day of the season when all the matches are on at the same time.
Yeah, that's the best.
And you don't have to worry about that, do you? You just know it's all going to be over in.
That's the best. It's genuinely, it's one of my favourite days of the year. I say every year. It's just like, it's like football Christmas, isn't it? You just got everything going on at once. It's the final day. You know what you need. Like if you're in a mini league and you're chasing 10 points, you know their team, you know what you need your players to get to beat them. Yeah, it's great. And you get all the emotions and stuff. It's definitely the best day. It'd be great. If it was up to me, every game week would be like that. It'd be great. Not to stagger it over like 4 weeks, just have a one beautiful 90-minute session of just football every week. But not going to happen.
No, definitely not. Not with TV contracts and so on. Do you think there's any changes that FPL themselves could make, or other fantasy football websites like Fan Team or Telegraph or whoever, to help the mental health base of their players, mental health of their player base?
Yeah, I mean, again, I was in FPL Nightmare talking about this and talking about the gambling, potential side of things. People will ridicule the idea that FPL can affect your mental health, but anything can really. I mean, if you're a golf player and you go and play golf and you have a bad round every time you go, you're going to come back and you're going to be pissed off.
If you're playing FPL, you and Mark said that was particularly a thing that stuck with you. That he said that allow yourself.
Exactly. Sorry. Allow yourself to be annoyed by it. And I also think the other thing he said was, why do the Premier League do posts which are just going to bait people into feeling crap? I completely agree with that. And when I was listening to that, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I think. It's just ridiculous. Were you one of the 3.9 million people to triple captain Salah? Well, no, I wasn't, and I had a shit week. Thanks, FPL. Like, you made me feel great about my weekend. So yeah, I think they could be a bit more considerate, but then they're looking for clicks, aren't they, and engagement and stuff. So yeah, that's one thing. I think it's difficult for them. a lot of the time to know where they sit, because I don't think they really realise how passionate the community is. I don't think they really truly, like the big heads at the Premier League, do they really know how obsessional people are about this game? I'm not totally sure they do. I think what they could do to ease people's suffering and pain is just really, it's like sort out stuff with the game that pisses people off, because that is in their control. I'm talking assists mainly. I think the way assists are done at the moment is just so stupid. And
why does it take them so long to figure out whether or not they're going to give player A the assist?
Because they've got a subjective rule which is around intended target. So if a player crosses a ball and it takes a deflection from someone, they scrutinise it in kind of as much detail as they can to see whether, Hall crossing the ball to Isak, was he crossing the ball to Isak, or was he crossing it to Gordon over his head? And if it did fall to Gordon, but it took a deflection, is that only because the deflection took it away from Isak? They forensically analyze stuff like that, and I just don't know why they choose to do it like that, because we all want points. We're not going to see Hall cross a ball that was meant for Isak and it go to Gordon and Gordon score, Hall gets the assist, and everyone kicks off that Hall's got the assist. Like, no one's gonna complain, because then next week your player will do it and you'll get the points for it. Stuff like that is within their control, and they can listen to the community more. They can get more involved in the people who play it regularly, and they can iron out stuff which fundamentally pisses people off. And I do think things like assists, things like the site breaking, the app breaking, technical issues with the app, that shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't be going to 5 minutes before deadline to make your transfer and the app crashes.
To be fair, they're only the Premier League. They haven't got that much money. Wait a minute.
Exactly. This is what I mean. They've got unlimited resource, and they do these surveys every year. I mean, did they act on them? I mean, has anything from surveys ever been actioned on stuff as to what people want? I mean, they brought out FPL Challenge. No disrespect, but who's that for? Why are they committing resource to building something like FPL Challenge when there's fundamental things in the game which need fixing? So my answer to your question is, how can they improve mental health? Is make their game better.
Or the assistant managership, which I'm not a fan of, particularly after the Moyes. I was a slot adopter.
Well, the assistant managership is a great example of who is this for. Because if you, Mark and I did a poll last night, 65% of people watching BlackBox last night didn't like the chip and wanted it removed completely. So that's 65% of the most engaged, you could argue, players of the game. Don't like a chip which seemingly is designed for the most engaged managers because it's so complicated, right? And I talk to people at work who have stopped playing FPL because they saw the assistant manager chip was revealed, they don't understand it, and they don't care.
I heard you say that. That shocked me that people still in. I mean, it didn't shock me that they wouldn't understand it, but it shocked me that they've actually given up.
Well, they can't be bothered. They can't be bothered to understand it because they... for people who, the Premier League is trying to bring in people who maybe aren't huge fans of football and want a gateway into football like the way I did. And if you're not that into football and you're playing FPL, you can just about get your head around player prices, different players, teams. You're then looking at XG stats and all that stuff. And then suddenly you're being asked to play a 3-game week chip with table bonuses, with managers that have come in halfway through a season that cost some of your budget. It's away from player points and it's team points. It's just too much. It's just completely too much. And they should have trialed it out first, and they didn't do that. And if they were going to bring it in, they should have made it simpler, and they didn't do that. And everyone hates it equally, casuals and engaged alike. So again, it's a massive misstep from them, and they don't seem to be taking into account what people want, and that leads to frustration. It's bad for their game, and it's bad for people playing it.
Yeah, Let's Talk FPL. Andy said that he reckons they'll probably keep it in just because they've coded it. And it would. They
will keep it in some capacity. Yeah. Whether they do simplify it, whether they do listen to feedback, I don't know. But they're not going to drop it. No way.
Okay.
I think it will probably be the same, but a 1-game week chip next year. That would be my guess. But
so we generally finish as by just having a quick chat about how your season's going. So I had a couple of notes in here, as I know you texted me beforehand to say I love this question.
Yeah, thanks.
Why do you think your rank has been so shit in recent seasons when you used to be a good player? Didn't you finish in the top 1,000 once, if I remember back to the Scout days?
There is no punches pulled with that question. I would like to say
I'm a
that
hard-hitting interviewer.
I finished 4K in the 2020-21 season. So I've had two. I mean, the season after was 140K, which I still think in and around 100K is still an all right finish. It's not 10K, but 100K is still decent. Last year was a shit show, 450K or whatever, and the whole season was just absolutely awful. I mean, I came 800th in 2017. That was, I think, my first full year of doing the ScoutCast as well. So that was really nice because every week there seemed to be a new thing going well for me. I don't even know what it was. It's just one of those seasons where everything went well. I think, if I'm being honest, the reason why I haven't done so well over the last few seasons is because I've really pushed back against the template. And I've really tried to not always be a template manager. I avoided Salah for too long this season. I avoided captain Haaland. I didn't captain Haaland for the Wolves game where he got 4 goals.
Why did you make that decision?
To avoid Salah?
Well, just to avoid the template, I guess, in general.
Because, well, the main reason is because I'm an idiot. the second reason is, well, I mean, there's a few reasons. I mean, the other reason is because it feels good when you go against something that everyone's doing and you get it right. That's always been something I've enjoyed with FPL. When you pick a differential, when you get a captain right that everyone else has gone, that's part of the main reason why we play the game. But if everyone's just buying the same players, everyone's got the same team, I just find it really dull, especially as a content creator as well. Like, if Mark and I are doing BlackBox and we have 10 of the same players, it's boring. And if we've got the same team as everyone else as a content creator, it's boring. And people notice it. They want people to do. This is the thing. People want you to be a bit different and, get in players that everyone else has got. But then they also want you to have really good ranks and finish really strongly.
Mark really likes going against the template as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, we both do. We both try to, and we've both done pretty shit over the last few years. I think it's 2-2, isn't it, between us in the 4 seasons we've done BlackBox is 2-2. I think we both had one good season where we finished kind of in the top 5K. He did all right last year. I think he came like 10,000 or something like that. But yeah, we both actively try and go against it. But I mean, Mark started the season without Haaland.
How important is that rivalry to you? I mean, if you beat Mark, does it matter if you finished 1 million, for example, if he's finished 2 million?
How important is it to beat Mark? I mean, when I finished 140K a few years ago, I beat Mark by 1 point. And I wouldn't change that for anything. Like, if you offered me a top 1K finish, but I finished behind Mark, I wouldn't take it. Like, beating him by 1 point I will remember that for the rest of my life.
It means quite a bit then.
Yeah, as sad as it sounds. I mean, that is a very extreme example. Generally speaking, I just want to finish as high as possible. And it's not like I'm looking at Mark's team and blocking off players that he's got or picking. I don't make any decisions off what Mark's doing, basically. But yeah, saying that, it does mean something. And actually, it's quite nice when you are doing quite shit and Mark's also doing quite shit. That's the other thing with FPL, isn't it? Like, sometimes you need to reevaluate your targets. Like, if your target in FPL is always top 10K, but you're 1.5 million in the world after 30 game weeks, and you're still annoyed that you're not going to finish in the top 10K, you're not going to have a good time. Whereas if you change your perspective on things and you say, okay, well, actually, top million would be a good finish for me, like from this position, then you can end the season in a very different mindset. And that's what it's like with Mark. It's like, if I'm doing badly and Mark is too, it's like, okay, forget about rank. Let's just beat Mark now, and we can celebrate that fact. So you've got to set yourself little targets.
And I know what your rank is because I watched BlackBox last night. I think you're almost identical rank than me. You're almost at 500,000, top end of 400,000. So I can't really knock you. Are you happy with that? I mean, I've never been this high, I don't think. Certainly for 7 or 8 years at this time of the season. And I'm in that place as where it doesn't matter what I do. I can't go up. I can't go down. I just hover.
Plateau. Yeah. I'm happy in a way because I was stuck in and around 2 million for about 10 game weeks this season. And then I was like, you know, I'm just going to buy Salah, forget it. Forget this whole plan's gone wrong. And since I did that, I've gone from 2 million to 480k or wherever I am now. So yeah, it's been it's actually been quite an enjoyable sort of last couple of months because I've been rising up the ranks. And again, it's very different. If you're 100k and then you find yourself after 10 weeks being 490k, you're going to have had a completely different experience because you could have thought you would have kicked on and instead it's gone the other way. Am I happy with 490k? I mean, it's all right. I think I can probably get into the top 100k from here if I play well.
That's got to be the goal for both of us.
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, you know, I talk about targets and stuff like it's not. I don't want to be pushing for the top 100k. I want to be in the top 10k at this point, and you know, going on for a chance of a top 1,000 finish. That's where I want to be. But I've revised my targets, and 100k is where I feel like I should finish this season. So it's okay, but yeah, I'd rather be higher.
Do you still go on then into a season thinking? Because my target is a top 100k from the start of the season to the end. Do you still go in thinking top 10k is like the target?
Yeah, I think for the amount it is bloody hard. Don't get me wrong, and you know, I think, like I said, I think finishing top 100k is a really good rank given the amount of people that play, the amount of content out there and stuff. But when I look at the amount of time that I invest in thinking about FPL, I feel like I should be in the top 10,000 of people who play it. And it's easy to say there's a lot of luck involved and everything like that, and more people means more variance across things. But yeah, I mean, I'm always going to play and try and finish, you know, that high, because yeah, I want to do well. I don't want to be happy with a top 100k finish. I want to push on, but at the moment, I think I probably would take one because the last two seasons haven't been great.
So the last question I usually ask guys is, I usually say here I've got a massive FPL expert in front of me, but I've got, you know, someone who's struggled for it a lot in the last couple of seasons. Obviously, I have got a massive expert.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
The question is, mate, what tips would you give to someone to just general, not related to this season, to become a better FPL player?
Yeah, it's a good question, and you know, there's no hard and fast rule. Like, some people have great success taking loads of hits and, you know, moving players around quite a lot. Other people are much more patient. I mean, it is, and I talk about Nightmare again, but I'm just repeating the stuff he said. But I think he was bang on in the sense that if you look at, generally speaking, the top managers, you know, who finish well every year, they are patient. They're patient managers. They will save a transfer. They will play fairly template. They will captain players based on EO, maybe over just thinking, having a gut feeling that a team's going to win 4 or 5-0 or something like that. Because when you start doing things outside of that, then you're adding in variance to it. So if you want to be a steady manager, I think you need to take that into account. Like, what I've tried to do this season and last season, which I'm probably not the best person because I've been bloody awful, but it is try and be a bit more patient. Like, I bought in this player for a reason. Okay, he hasn't performed in the last 2 weeks, but is he, like, do I need to take him out this week? Or like, okay, this player has been bought by 400,000 people. Okay, it's Mohamed Salah or Chris Wood, and yes, I should have bought them a lot earlier than I did, but there's other players, you know, bandwagons that happen where we don't need to move that quickly. And I think that's the skill. When people talk about luck or skill, it's knowing when to move and when to be patient.
Would you class yourself as a boring or a maverick manager? Where would you say you are on the scale?
So like centre right, if right is differential and left is boring.
Like the opposite of your politics, then.
The opposite of my politics, yeah. I try and be a bit different, but like, if you look at my team, my template rating on live FPL is normally around 65-70%. So I can't claim that I'm this kind of maverick manager. I think I do quite well sometimes with maybe identifying a player that maybe people are being a bit slow on, or I've had Martinelli in the past. Obviously, the Bruno Guimaraes one the last few seasons ago, I'm still dining off on that.
Barco of Brighton.
Barco, the generational talent, ones like that have really done well for me, and forget about all the other ones.
What did you see in Bruno Guimaraes? Because I remember he was a defensive central midfielder, basically, wasn't he? And
They had injuries in the attacking midfield position, and I think they were playing. I can't remember. It was something like Shelby and Hayden or something. Like they were both playing regularly. So it was like, we're not going to play either of those in an offensive attacking midfield. So it's probably going to be Bruno. I mean, again, like I've been dining off on that for years. I mean, it was years ago, and hasn't really been one since. But you know, I have had a few players. Like, you know, I've got like Pascal Gross on the wall. I've had Sterling when everyone thought he was rubbish, and then he went on an amazing run of, I think he got like 5 goals in 3 games or something like that. Like, I'd like to think that I'm still able to occasionally pluck out a player like that. Last year I just couldn't at all. Like last year was, who did I even put on the wall last year? Oh, Simicast. Yeah, that sums it up. My accidental play of Simicast is the one.
Is this your wall? I didn't realise that. Is this your wall? Like Let's Talk FPL Andy's of the great.
Yeah, he nicked that from me. He nicked that idea from me. Thank you very much. I was doing this first. Yeah, they're players. So each one's a different season. So they're like my player of.
Who have we got? Who's up there?
We've got Pascal Gross there. So that was when I finished 800th. He was like incredible for me, like pretty much the whole season. Mane, that's when everyone had Salah, and I think I swapped to Mane for like the last few weeks, and he outscored him by like 40 points. I need to get my things right. There's Sterling, Martinez when he was really good. I can't work out what I'm doing with this one.
You're pointing the right way.
Reece James when he was like the biggest troll, but I bought him in like 4 times that season.
I remember that season you had him all the time.
He just kept scoring.
But every time
I got 2 goals.
Every time I bought him in, I listened to you. He got bloody injured.
Yeah, it was amazing. I don't know what it was, but I just managed to catch every haul he had and just kind of not have him for when he got injured. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Then Porro, that's when I beat Mark by 1 point. Porro scored in like the last minute.
Okay.
Which won me that, and then obviously Simicast. And the one below it is Football Manager. I took Chelmsford to the Premier League title. That's my Chelmsford FC team.
Awesome.
Not a nerd, honestly.
Yeah. Were you upset when they announced the other day? I was very upset.
Yeah, I know. I was. Do you know what though? It was ridiculous them even saying they were going to bring out 25 like 2 months before the season ends. I thought it was just because it would have meant 26 was going to be rushed and crap. So I'm disappointed, but I'm actually glad they binned it and can now just focus on making 26 a good game.
I hope they actually managed to get out.
So do I.
Awesome. As any other general advice for how to be a FPL player before we finish?
Yeah, I mean, what I said about being patient and stuff is that's just one way of playing the game, right? Because you might not want to play it like that. You might want to pick differentials. You might want to try and win the game. If you're going to win the game, you've got to play it a different way. I think you need to be differential. You need to hope that the players you're bringing in, who no one owns, are going to take off. And maybe you're the type of person who looks at it and thinks, well, if everyone's captaining Salah, but I think Isak is going to get a brace, then I'm going to captain Isak. And then if that happens, you're stealing a march of 20 points potentially on people. So I'm not saying that's the right way of playing the game. I just think if you're looking to kind of consolidate and have a decent finish, then patience probably is the key. But really, you should be playing FPL in a way that you enjoy. So that's my nice message. Don't let the trolls on Twitter or your ranks or anything like that dictate the way you play FPL. What I'd really like to see at FPL is achievements. I'd really like to see like badges for, like you captain a defender who scored, or you captained a goalkeeper who got, I don't know, like things that like you could unlock things, and then you'd get people who just think, screw the rank, I don't even care. I'm going to try and captain Pickford every week for an assist.
I don't want to plug Hub with FPL Hub too much with Big FF Scoutman here, but I think they do that. I've heard on their.
Do Hub? I know Playmaker used to.
Yeah, I've heard that anyway. I mean, I'm not actually a Hub member. I am a Fantasy Football Scout member.
Very good.
Which is actually true. And FPL Review. But yeah, I've heard they do that, and it's just like a nice little, you did this in your mini league sort of thing. But
yeah, I think the difference with that is you just get those kind of you look to get those naturally. Like you just get those as you play the game normally. I think if FPL actually introduced it as part of the
FPL,
game, people would change the way they played the game to get the achievements, and I think that would be a really cool thing.
Like
to be like, okay, yeah,
like computer games.
Yeah, well, I've finished 10 million in the world 3 years in a row, but look at my look at my achievements that I've got. I just think it'd be a fun way, but we'll see if they ever bring them.
Thank you so much for joining me, mate. I was looking where to do this. I've left it right to the end. I will just say, if anyone is interested, this isn't actually the first time me and Az have made a video. We did make with Yelena a tier list.
Horror film tiers, yeah.
Yeah, on my second channel a couple of weeks ago now, wasn't it? So I will link that in the description in case anyone is interested. But Az, thank you so much for joining, mate. It's been, it's been an honour, mate. We have conversed a few times before, but I'm such a big fan. I'm such a big fan.
And we got 2.5 hours, so we basically done an episode of BlackBox, so that's nice.
Yeah. I'm on it, mate. Is there anything you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, well, if you are interested in FPL BlackBox, obviously check out our channel. But there's so many good creators out there who are doing stuff as well. So we talked about Nightmare multiple times on this. Check out his stuff. Obviously, subscribe to Gary if you haven't already. And yeah, just I would, if you're still on Twitter or on Blue Sky or on your YouTube, just check out other content creators that are posting stuff. And like I did when I found Scout, and it was a very niche little community, you might end up finding a content creator who you really like that not many people know about, and then they become your kind of person, So why not just go on YouTube every now and then, type in FPL, and just click on some content creators you've never seen before. Maybe they'll be shit. Maybe they'll be your next best thing, Yep.
Give it a go. You've only lost 5 minutes of your life if they shit.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for listening. Please like the video to help more people see it. Please subscribe. It would mean the world to me if I could get the channel up to 400 subscribers before the channel turns 5 months old. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one.
See you later.